The morning sun cast a golden glow over Windsor Castle as Prince William adjusted his navy blue suit for the third time. His hands trembled slightly, something that rarely happened to the future king. Today was different. Today, he and Princess Kate would face the public for the first time since receiving news that would change their lives forever. Kate stood by the window, her elegant cream dress flowing gently in the morning breeze. Her usually perfect composure showed cracks of vulnerability that only William could see. She had been quieter than usual during breakfast, picking at her toast while their children played in the garden, unaware of the weight their parents carried. The phone call had come 3 days earlier. William remembered every detail. The way Kate's face had gone pale, how she had gripped the kitchen counter for support, the sound of her sharp intake of breath. The doctors had been gentle but direct. The test results were not what anyone had hoped for. "Are you ready, my love?" William asked softly, placing his hand on Kate's shoulder. She turned to face him, and he saw the strength that had made him fall in love with her all those years ago. Despite everything, she managed a small smile. "As ready as I'll ever be," Kate replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. "The people deserve to know the truth from us, not from rumors or speculation." Their private secretary knocked gently on the door. "Your Royal Highnesses, the car is ready." The crowd has already begun gathering outside the hospital. William nodded, knowing that once they stepped outside, their private struggle would become public. But they had made a decision together, to face this challenge with the same grace and dignity that had defined their royal duties for years. Kate picked up her small clutch bag, the one William had given her for their anniversary. Inside was a letter from their youngest child, a simple drawing of their family with the words, "I love you, Mummy," written in wobbly letters. It would give her strength for what lay ahead. As they walked down the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the grand hallway, William thought about how this moment would be remembered. Royal protocol demanded composure, but today, he knew that showing their humanity would mean more to the nation than any perfect appearance. The car doors closed behind them, and as they drove through the gates of Windsor, both William and Kate saw the crowds that had already begun to gather. People held flowers, handmade signs, and wore expressions of concern and love. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, even before they had said a single word. Kate reached for William's hand as they approached the hospital where they would make their announcement. "Whatever happens today," she whispered, "we face it together." William squeezed her hand gently, drawing strength from the woman who had stood by his side through every triumph and challenge. Today would test them in ways they had never imagined, but they would meet it with the courage that had carried the royal family through generations of adversity. The car slowed as they approached their destination, and through the tinted windows they could see the sea of faces waiting for them. News crews from around the world had gathered, but it was the ordinary people, the families, the children, the elderly couples, who touched their hearts the most. "Remember," William said quietly as their protection officers prepared to open the doors, "we're not just representing the crown today, we're representing every family who has walked this path." Kate nodded, taking a deep breath as she prepared to step into the public eye and share the most personal moment of their lives with the world. The hospital doors opened, and immediately the flash of cameras created a wall of blinding light. William stepped out first, his training taking over as he scanned the crowd with the practiced eye of someone born into public life. But today felt different. The usual excitement and cheers were replaced by a hushed reverence, as if the nation sensed that something profound was about to unfold. Kate emerged from the car with the grace that had made her beloved around the world. Her smile was gentle but strained, and those who knew her well could see the effort it took to maintain her composure. The crowd noticed, too, there was something vulnerable about her today that touched every heart present. They walked slowly toward the makeshift podium that had been set up outside the hospital's main entrance. Each step felt monumental, carrying the weight of a decision that would impact not just their family, but millions of people who looked to them for stability and hope. A young girl in the front row held up a handmade sign that read, "We love you, Princess Kate." When Kate saw it, her carefully maintained composure wavered for just a moment. She paused, smiled at the child, and placed her hand over her heart in a gesture of gratitude that spoke louder than any words. William noticed his wife's emotional response and subtly moved closer to her side. It was a small gesture, but one that demonstrated the partnership that had sustained them through 15 years of marriage and royal duties. The crowd saw it too, and many felt their own eyes begin to water at the obvious love and support between the couple. As they reached the podium, Kate looked out at the sea of faces before them. There were people of all ages, grandmothers clutching tissues, fathers holding their children on their shoulders, teenagers who had grown up watching the royal couple's fairy tale romance. All of them had come here today because they cared, because the royal family had somehow become part of their own families. William cleared his throat and stepped toward the microphone. The crowd fell completely silent, so quiet that the sound of traffic from the nearby street seemed loud in comparison. Even the news crews stopped their chatter, sensing that they were about to witness something extraordinary. "Thank you all for being here today," William began, his voice strong despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Kate and I wanted to speak to you directly, as we have always tried to do during the most important moments of our lives." Kate stood beside him, her hands clasped in front of her, watching the faces in the crowd. She could see her own emotions reflected back at her: hope, fear, love, and unwavering support. It gave her the strength to step forward and take her place beside William at the microphone. "Over the past few days," Kate said, her voice clear and steady, "our family has received some challenging news. It's the kind of news that every family fears, but that millions of families face with courage every single day." A murmur rippled through the crowd as people began to understand the gravity of what they were hearing. Some reached for the hands of loved ones standing nearby, while others simply held their breath, waiting for the words that would come next. William looked at his wife with obvious admiration before continuing. "We have always believed that part of our role is to share not just the celebrations of life, but also its challenges. Today we want to be honest with you about something that will test our family, but that we are determined to face together." The cameras captured every micro-expression, every pause, every breath. But more importantly, they captured the raw humanity of two people who had chosen to strip away the formal barriers of royalty and speak heart to heart with their people. Kate's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "We know that many of you have walked this path before us or are walking it now alongside your own loved ones. Your strength has inspired us, and we hope that our openness today might offer some comfort to others facing similar challenges." An elderly man in the crowd wiped away a tear, remembering his own wife's battle years earlier. A young mother held her daughter closer, grateful for the reminder that no one faces life's difficulties alone. The connection between the royal couple and their people had never felt more real or more powerful. The moment of truth had arrived. Kate took a deep breath, her fingers unconsciously touching the small locket around her neck that contained photos of George, Charlotte, and Louis. The gesture was captured by every camera, but more importantly, it was seen by every parent in the crowd who understood the protective love behind it. "Yesterday," Kate began, her voice growing softer but somehow more powerful, "I received confirmation that I will be beginning a course of treatment for cancer." The words hung in the air like a physical presence, and the collective gasp from the crowd was audible even over the sound of clicking cameras. For a moment, time seemed suspended. William moved almost imperceptibly closer to his wife, his presence a silent pillar of strength. Kate continued, drawing courage from somewhere deep within herself that had sustained the royal family through centuries of trials. "The past few weeks have been incredibly tough for our entire family," she said, her voice never wavering despite the magnitude of what she was sharing. "It took time for us to explain everything to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that was appropriate for them, and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay." In the crowd, parents exchanged knowing glances, understanding the impossible balance of protecting children while preparing them for difficult realities. A woman near the front row began to cry openly, remembering her own mother's illness and the careful conversations that had shaped her childhood. William stepped forward, his love for his wife evident in every gesture. "As Kate mentioned, this has been an incredibly tough period for our family, but we have been deeply moved by the support we have already received from so many of you. Your kindness and well wishes have meant more to us than you could possibly know." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Even the photographers had stopped their constant clicking, sensing that this moment deserved their full attention and respect. The only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves in the nearby trees and the distant hum of London life continuing around them. Kate looked directly into the crowd, making eye contact with individuals rather than speaking to the mass of people. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding of our request for privacy as a family. We hope that you will understand that as a family, we now need some time, space, and privacy while I complete my treatment. Her words were measured and deliberate, but underneath the royal composure, everyone could hear the voice of a mother, a wife, a daughter who was facing one of life's greatest challenges with extraordinary grace. An elderly woman in the crowd called out, "We love you, Kate," and others quickly joined in with gentle words of encouragement. The outpouring was spontaneous and heartfelt, creating a moment that transcended the usual formal relationship between the royal family and the public. William's eyes glistened as he witnessed the genuine love and support being offered to his wife. "Your messages of support have provided comfort and hope during this difficult time," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Kate's strength and courage throughout this period have been truly inspiring, not just to me and our children, but to everyone who knows her. Kate smiled at her husband, a real smile that broke through the formal facade for just a moment. It was the smile that millions had fallen in love with when she first appeared at William's side, but now it carried a different quality, the wisdom and strength that comes only through facing life's deepest challenges. "I know I will be okay," Kate said with quiet conviction, "but this path has taught us so much about what truly matters in life. The love of family, the support of friends, and the kindness of strangers who become friends through their compassion." The crowd listened in respectful silence as she continued. "We have learned that hope is not just a feeling, but a choice we make every day. And we choose hope, together, as a family and as part of the larger family that is our nation." Her words resonated through the crowd like ripples on water, touching hearts and inspiring strength in people who had their own battles to fight. In that moment, the distance between royalty and commoner disappeared completely, leaving only human beings supporting each other through life's inevitable challenges. As Kate finished speaking, something extraordinary began to happen in the crowd. Without any prompting or organization, people began to applaud. But this wasn't the polite, formal clapping typical of royal events. This was something deeper, a standing ovation born from genuine emotion and respect that seemed to come from the very souls of everyone present. The applause grew stronger, accompanied by calls of, "We're with you, Kate," and "You're not alone." The sound washed over the royal couple like a wave of love and support that neither had expected nor experienced before in their public lives. William looked out at the crowd with visible amazement. In all his years as a royal, he had witnessed many public displays of affection for his family, but nothing had prepared him for this raw, authentic outpouring of human compassion. His own composure began to crack as he saw grown men wiping away tears and children holding up pictures they had drawn of Kate. Kate herself seemed overwhelmed by the response. Her hand went to her chest, and for a moment, she seemed to struggle with the emotion of it all. The cameras captured her authentic reaction, not the practiced responses of royal training, but the genuine surprise and gratitude of a woman who had just experienced an extraordinary act of collective love. "Thank you," she whispered into the microphone, her voice barely audible over the continuing applause. "Thank you so very much." William stepped closer to the microphone. "Before we go, Kate and I want you to know that your support today has given us more strength than any medical treatment could provide. We have felt your love, and it will carry us through the days ahead." In the crowd, a small boy who couldn't have been more than 6 years old broke free from his mother's hand and ran toward the barrier, separating the crowd from the royal couple. He held up a drawing he had made, a stick figure family under a rainbow with the words "Get Better Soon" written in crayon. The security team moved to intercept the child, but William held up his hand to stop them. Instead, he walked over to the barrier and knelt down to the boy's level. The gesture sent another wave of emotion through the crowd, as people witnessed their future king showing such natural kindness to a child. "Is this for Princess Kate?" William asked gently, taking the drawing from the boy's small hands. The child nodded shyly. "My mummy said the princess is sick, so I made her a picture to make her feel better." William's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the innocent drawing. "She's going to love this very much. Thank you for being so thoughtful." Kate had watched the entire exchange, and when William brought the drawing to her, she held it against her chest as if it were the most precious gift she had ever received. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she called out to the boy. "Tommy," the child replied with a big grin, clearly thrilled that the princess was talking to him. "Thank you, Tommy. This is beautiful, and I'm going to put it somewhere very special where I can see it every day." The interaction had been captured by every camera present, but more importantly, it had been witnessed by hundreds of people who would carry the memory of that moment for the rest of their lives. It perfectly encapsulated everything that made Kate beloved: her genuine warmth, her ability to connect with people of all ages, and her gracious acceptance of love offered freely. As William and Kate prepared to leave, the crowd began singing "God Save the King" spontaneously. But after the first verse, someone started singing "Amazing Grace," and soon the entire gathering had joined in. The hymn rose into the afternoon air, creating a moment of unity and hope that transcended religious and cultural boundaries. Kate closed her eyes and listened to the voices surrounding her. In that moment, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel when they had planned this announcement. She felt held, supported, and loved by an entire nation. The fear that had dominated her thoughts for weeks began to give way to something stronger: the certainty that she would not face this battle alone. William took her hand as they prepared to walk back to their car. "Are you ready to go home to the children?" he asked softly. Kate nodded, clutching Tommy's drawing in her free hand. "Yes, let's go tell them about all the love that surrounds our family." The drive back to Windsor was quiet, but it was a different kind of silence than they had experienced on the way to the hospital. Where there had been nervous tension before, now there was a sense of peace and accomplishment. They had done something incredibly difficult, and they had done it together. Kate stared out the window at the people lining the streets. Word of their announcement had spread quickly, and spontaneous gatherings had formed along their route home. People held flowers, Union Jack flags, and homemade signs expressing their support. Children waved from their parents' shoulders, and elderly couples stood hand in hand, offering silent prayers for the princess's recovery. "Look at that," William said softly, pointing to a group of hospital workers still in their scrubs who had stepped outside to wave as the royal car passed. "They've probably just finished their own difficult day saving lives, and yet they're here for you." Kate wiped away a tear as she saw the healthcare workers. "They understand," she said quietly. "They know what this journey looks like, and they're telling me I can do it too." As they approached Windsor Castle, they could see that even here, people had gathered at the gates. The guards had allowed small groups to leave flowers and cards, creating an impromptu memorial of love and support that stretched along the castle walls. "Mummy, Daddy," came the excited voices of George, Charlotte, and Louis as William and Kate entered their private quarters. The children had been watching from the windows and rushed to embrace their parents with the uninhibited joy that only children can express. "Did you tell everyone?" asked Charlotte, looking up at her mother with serious eyes that seemed too wise for her young age. Kate knelt down to her daughter's level, still holding Tommy's drawing. "Yes, darling. We told them, and do you know what happened?" "What?" all three children asked in unison. "They told us they love us very much, and they're going to help us through this, just like we help each other in our family." George, being the oldest, had been carrying a weight of responsibility that no child should bear. "Are you scared, Mummy?" he asked with the directness that children possess. Kate considered her answer carefully. "Sometimes I am scared," she admitted. "But you know what makes me feel brave?" "What?" Louis piped up, climbing onto his father's lap. "Knowing that I have the three most wonderful children in the world, and the best daddy anyone could ask for. And now I also know that I have an entire country full of people who care about our family." William watched his wife with their children and felt his heart swell with pride. Even in her most vulnerable moment, she was teaching them about courage, honesty, and the power of community support. The family spent the evening quietly together. They ordered pizza instead of having a formal dinner, and they all sat on the floor of the living room, something that would have scandalized royal protocol officers but felt perfectly right for this day. As they ate, the children shared stories from their day at school. Charlotte had told her teacher about her mother's announcement, and the teacher had given her an extra hug. George had received a card from his classmates, and Louis had drawn his own picture to add to Tommy's drawing. Can we put all the pictures together? Louis asked. Like a big wall of love? Kate looked at William and they both smiled. That's a wonderful idea, she said. We'll create a wall where we can see all the love that people are sending us. As the evening wound down and the children were tucked into bed, William and Kate finally had a moment to themselves. They sat together on their private balcony, looking out over the gardens where they could see the flickering lights of candles that people had lit in support at the castle gates. How do you feel? William asked, wrapping his arm around his wife. Kate leaned into his embrace. Exhausted, she said honestly, but also grateful and hopeful. I never expected the response we received today. You were incredible, William said. The way you spoke, the way you connected with everyone. You gave them permission to care, and they responded with all the love they had to give. Kate was quiet for a moment, processing the day's events. I keep thinking about that little boy, Tommy, and his drawing, and about all those faces in the crowd. They didn't see a princess today. They saw a person going through something difficult, and they offered their hearts. That's exactly what they saw, William agreed. And that's exactly what you gave them in return, your heart. As they prepared for bed, Kate looked at herself in the mirror. She looked the same as she had that morning, but she felt fundamentally changed. The fear was still there, but it was no longer the dominant emotion. Instead, she felt surrounded by an invisible network of support that stretched far beyond anything she had ever imagined possible. Tomorrow we start the real journey, she said to William's reflection in the mirror. Tomorrow we continue the journey we started today, he corrected gently, and we won't walk it alone. 3 months had passed since that emotional day outside the hospital, and the transformation in both Kate and the nation's relationship with the royal family had been remarkable. The treatment had been challenging, but the outpouring of support had never wavered. Letters arrived daily at Windsor Castle, thousands upon thousands from people around the world sharing their own stories, offering prayers and sending love. Kate had insisted on reading as many as possible personally. William often found her in the morning sunroom, surrounded by carefully organized piles of correspondence, with tears in her eyes as she read about a grandmother in Scotland who had beaten the same diagnosis, or a young mother in Wales who was just beginning her own treatment journey. Listen to this one, Kate said to William one morning, holding up a letter written in purple crayon. It's from a 7-year-old girl named Emma. She says, Dear Princess Kate, my teacher says you're sick like my grandma was. My grandma got better and now she makes the best cookies. I hope you get better too so you can make cookies with Prince Louis. William smiled as he watched his wife's face light up while reading the letter. The treatment had taken its toll physically, but her spirit seemed stronger than ever. She had found purpose in connecting with others who shared similar struggles, and she had begun planning ways to use her experience to help other families facing cancer diagnoses. The children had adapted to their mother's treatment schedule with remarkable resilience. They had learned to be extra gentle during her tired days and had become fierce protectors of her rest time. Charlotte had appointed herself as the family's happiness manager, organizing little performances and art projects to keep everyone's spirits up. Mummy, we have a surprise for you, George announced one afternoon, leading Kate to the garden where the children had been working secretly with their father. In the center of the garden, they had created a memorial garden with flowers sent by well-wishers from around the world. Each plant had a small marker indicating which country it came from, creating a living map of global support and love. We planted them all ourselves, Louis said proudly, his small hands still dirty from gardening. Daddy helped, but we did most of the work. Kate was speechless as she walked through the garden, reading the markers: roses from Kenya, lavender from France, sunflowers from Ukraine, cherry tree saplings from Japan. The garden represented something far greater than its individual plants. It was a physical manifestation of the human connections that had been forged through shared experience and compassion. There's one more thing, Charlotte said, pulling her mother toward a small bench that had been placed at the center of the garden. On the bench was a plaque that read, "In celebration of courage, hope, and the love that connects us all." Kate sat on the bench and looked around at the garden, at her family, at the castle walls beyond where she knew people still left flowers and messages of support. The fear that had dominated her thoughts 6 months ago felt like a distant memory, replaced by a deep understanding of the interconnectedness of human experience. You know what I've learned? Kate said to her family as they gathered around the bench. I learned that when we share our struggles, they become lighter. When we share our fears, they become smaller. And when we share our hope, it becomes stronger. William sat beside his wife on the bench, with the children arranging themselves on the grass at their feet. Your courage in sharing your story has inspired so many people, he said. The cancer charities are reporting record numbers of people getting checked early because of your announcement. Kate nodded, knowing that this was perhaps the most meaningful outcome of their decision to go public. If even one person gets an early diagnosis because they were encouraged to see their doctor after hearing our story, then everything we've been through has been worth it. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees as the family sat together in their garden of international friendship. Letters and packages continued to arrive daily, but now they also brought news of recoveries, of early diagnoses, of families who had found strength in the royal family's openness about their own challenges. I want to write back to Tommy, Kate said suddenly, remembering the little boy whose drawing had touched her heart that first day, and to Emma who wants to make cookies, and to all of them, really. That would take forever, George pointed out practically. Kate smiled at her eldest son's logical mind. Maybe not individual letters to everyone, but something that reaches all of them at once. A way to say thank you and to share what we've learned. William recognized the look in his wife's eyes. It was the same expression she had worn when she had first decided to focus on early childhood development, or when she had launched her photography project. It was the look of someone who had found their next mission. What are you thinking? He asked. I'm thinking about a foundation, Kate said slowly, the idea forming as she spoke, something that supports families going through medical challenges. Not just the patients, but the children, the siblings, the grandparents, everyone who is affected when someone they love gets sick. Charlotte clapped her hands together. Could we help other kids like us? Exactly like that, Kate said, pulling her daughter close. We could help families understand that it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to find joy even in difficult times. As the day drew to a close and the children ran off to play in other parts of the garden, William and Kate remained on the bench, planning and dreaming about ways to transform their personal experience into something that could help countless other families. 6 months ago, I thought this diagnosis was the worst thing that could happen to us, Kate reflected. I never could have imagined that it would lead to this, to understanding how connected we all are, how much love exists in the world, and how much good can come from sharing our truth. 1 year later, Kate stood at the same hospital where she had made her announcement, but this time the circumstances were entirely different. She was here to officially open the new family support wing that had been funded entirely by donations that poured in after her public announcement about her cancer diagnosis. Her hair had grown back, fuller and shinier than before, and there was a radiance about her that seemed to glow from within. The treatment had been successful, but more importantly, the journey had transformed not just her, but the entire royal family's approach to their public service. The wing was bustling with activity. Children played in bright, cheerful rooms while their parents received treatment. Families gathered in comfortable spaces designed to feel more like homes than hospitals. Trained counselors were available to help children understand and cope with a loved one's illness. It was everything Kate had envisioned during those quiet moments in her garden. Princess Kate, called a familiar voice from the crowd. Kate turned to see Tommy, the little boy who had given her the drawing a year ago. He was taller now with a gap-toothed smile, and he was holding another picture. Tommy, Kate exclaimed, kneeling down to greet him with genuine joy. How wonderful to see you again. I made you another picture, Tommy said proudly, handing her a drawing that showed stick figures in hospital gowns with big smiles on their faces. It's the people you helped get better. Kate studied the drawing carefully, just as she had done with his first gift. This is beautiful, Tommy, and you know what? You helped too. Your first drawing gave me hope when I needed it most. Tommy's mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Princess Kate, I wanted to thank you. After your announcement, I finally went to see my doctor about something I'd been worried about. They caught it early because of you. My children still have their mummy because you gave me the courage to seek help. Kate stood and embraced the woman, understanding in that moment the full circle of what had been set in motion by their decision to share their struggle publicly. The ripple effects had reached far beyond anything they could have imagined. William joined them, having finished his own tour of the wing's facilities. "How does it feel to see your vision come to life?" he asked his wife. "It feels like the best possible outcome from the worst possible beginning," Kate replied, watching as families moved through the bright, welcoming spaces that had been created from their shared experience of vulnerability and fear. The formal ribbon-cutting ceremony took place in the wing's central courtyard, which featured a garden inspired by the International Memorial Garden at Windsor Castle. Representatives from the many countries that had sent plants and flowers were present, creating a gathering that truly represented the global community that had formed around their family's journey. As Kate prepared to address the crowd, she saw familiar faces scattered throughout the audience. There was the elderly woman who had cried during her original announcement, now volunteering as a patient advocate. There was the group of healthcare workers who had waved from the hospital steps, now working in the new wing. There were families who had written letters sharing their own stories, now using the services that their collective voices had helped create. "When I stood here a year ago," Kate began, her voice strong and clear, "I was sharing the scariest moment of our family's life. Today I stand here sharing one of the most hopeful moments we've ever experienced." The crowd listened intently as she continued. "This wing exists because of your letters, your donations, your stories, and your love. But most importantly, it exists because we learned together that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and positive change." She paused, looking out at the faces before her, many of whom had become dear friends through correspondence over the past year. "Every family that will be helped here, every child who will better understand their parents' illness, every patient who will feel less alone, they are all connected to that moment a year ago when we decided to trust you with our truth." William stepped forward to join his wife at the podium. "Kate's courage in sharing her story has created something far greater than any of us imagined. But more than that, your response to her courage has shown the world what human compassion looks like in action." The children, now older and even more confident in their understanding of their family's journey, stepped forward to help cut the ribbon. George wielded the scissors with serious concentration while Charlotte and Louis held the ribbon steady, their faces beaming with pride in their mother's accomplishment. As the ribbon fell away and applause filled the courtyard, Kate felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun with fear and uncertainty had led to this moment of joy and purpose. The illness that had threatened to diminish her had instead amplified her ability to connect with and help others. Later that evening, as the family returned home to Windsor, they walked through their memorial garden one more time. The plants had grown strong and beautiful, creating a living testament to the power of international friendship and support. "Do you think we'll keep getting letters?" Charlotte asked as they paused by the bench that had become their favorite family gathering spot. "I think so," Kate replied. "But now there'll be letters of hope instead of just support. People will write to tell us about their own victories, their own moments of courage, their own discoveries about what really matters in life." As they headed inside for dinner, Kate reflected on how completely their lives had changed. The diagnosis that had once seemed like an ending had actually been a beginning, of deeper relationships, of meaningful work, of a profound understanding that shared humanity is stronger than any individual struggle. The nation that had moved to tears by their vulnerability had been transformed right alongside them, creating a legacy of compassion that would outlast any single moment or individual challenge. In sharing their most difficult journey, they had discovered that the greatest royal duty of all is simply being human, openly and courageously, in service of others who need to know they are not alone.